So this is what the real version, not the part that cops would recognize. So anyhow, what happened is, I'm being gang stalked, and you know that my Facebook page is evidential, which means that it has time and dated events. It has a lot of references, dated references for supporting information. So that might be in the form of a documentary or article, things like that. It has a ton of information on it. Recently, I started a thread when I started realizing that the apartment downstairs was trying to start a mini smearing campaign on this street on Upland Avenue. So you hear me talk about, the things that are said as they play out, and you also see me note how the parallel reality, the escaping who you are ordeal, and by pretending like someone else is not who they say they are, plays out. So the things that were taking place, the things that were being done in order for these demonic entities to receive favor and make advancements. So there's a lot of information on there. What I did recently was I blocked it because I saw them trying to use it against me. The apartment downstairs, they recently filed a fraudulent restraining order against me. Kelly Bunce filed a restraining order for something that she wasn't even a part of. She did it on behalf of her boyfriend because his record is so bad. So, hold on. So they had a couple of videos that they were using to manipulate reality, and those videos were from 2017. They were trying to use those to discredit my content and kind of be red herrings, like distract from the true meaning of what my content is about. So, what's taking place right now is today's the 4th. Like I said, I blocked that information on the 28th. I blocked it on the 28th to review it and add some other things to it. And I have not gotten to it yet. But it has things in it, like they're jamming my phone. Only about what 315 is doing and how 315 was lying to the rest of the neighborhood, trying to make them think that I was talking about all their personal business. Personal business is something that takes place inside. I have no way of knowing their personal business. I have noted that the government talks to me about what goes on in the side of these households. And when I say I've noted it, I noted it just like I just said it. I don't talk about what goes on in there because it's nothing that I've witnessed. I only discuss things that I witnessed personally with my own 2 eyes. So, anyhow, the entire thing was to pretty much keep Kelly Bunce in the apartment downstairs from finding out what he said about her. That's how this whole thing started. He did it. He tried to sabotage my character to keep her from finding out what he said about her. So, they were doing stuff like noting things that they had not seen. So recently I created a video with showing and proving that this is an isolated matter and that no one was watching these videos because no one is. So anyhow, you can imagine the rest of the neighborhood is a part of this ordeal, and they're kind of like, all dependent on the conflict that takes place with them. So whereas they were a link in the past, they're still trying to serve as, hold up, let me word this right. Okay, I just cannot access those thoughts right now. So anyhow, PP stands for politics. I'm just going to do something to distract the agents that are attacking me. EV stands for evidence. CC stands for cyber crimes. AC stands for activism. A stands for attacks. ED stands for educational videos. And, I got the divine disclosures and stuff. So anyhow, I realized while I was renumbering, because that's what I've been working on for the last few weeks. I've been working on this renumbering ordeal. What I noticed was a video that wasn't getting any views or any attention, like Divine Disclosures, suddenly had like 4 views in the last 48 hours. So I saw that and I realized that they were the ones that were looking through it and they were trying to find the information that find out what I said about the landlord. The videos weren't watched. So that's like, those are really long videos, like 5, 9 hours. They did not watch those videos through. But that's the type of things that take place. They just kind of put the information in their heads and, they have a way of justifying it. So, 323 next door on the left is throwing a party tomorrow. And the party is dependent on whether or not they can steal DNA, they can steal energy, they can falsify or sabotage me in some way. So that's kind of the thing the issue that I ran into today after I left the library and I went to Save-A-Lot. So I noticed I was being heavily gang stalked while I was at Save-A-Lot, and they weren't able to pull it off, so they reset the atmosphere, and they made it seem like, they wasn't the female that they were using was not a part of what took place. So I left, I come here, and as soon as I hit Upland Avenue, 323's dad-in-law was flying past me. He was trying to sabotage me, and that's not the first time that he's gang stalked me. It's probably the 4th. So he was trying to make it appear that he dropped me off. They were going to lie and say that I was her. And they've been calling me her all day long. They've been calling me Sonya, so that she can receive favor and that this party will be a smash. So, and like I said, in order to do that, they either lie or they try to act like they disrespected you. They act like they did something that they did not do. And that means that sometimes it's as simple as them positioning themselves near you and having a loud conversation that supports a suggestion. Supports a suggestion that something else took place that you were a part of. So, when I seen that, as I got closer, I realized that Steve, Kelly Bunt's boyfriend in the apartment downstairs, 315 down, was waiting in the door to see me coming because he was just trying to, confirm what he was told. He was just trying to confirm what he was told and see if he had a way to lie. So he sees his car pass. He's like, okay, he's in place. And then he sees me coming and he's like, okay, cool. So what I did was I kept walking and I passed my apartment and I went to the park instead. The park on Galena. And I can't recall what that other road is. The one next to Sherman. On the left of Sherman. So not Grant on the right, but the other side. And I went to the park for a little bit and I sat there and I walked. And when I come back, I noticed that he was on the prowl, like from about not a quarter mile, it's real shy of a quarter of a mile, couple 100 yards. I noticed that he was passing by. He was on Cole. He was going back to act like he had nothing to do with what had just taken place. So, I continued on, but when I got near, I realized that her brother in law was also there now. And they thought that it would get me to avoid the area and not go the way that I came. And it didn't. I crossed right in front of its vehicle. And like I said, they're in the car. No one said anything to me, but they're in the car. I crossed in front of the vehicle and I came in. When I came in earlier today, Steve and I exchanged a couple words about his door. Him just having it where I couldn't get by. So when I returned, he saw me coming up the driveway, he did move it. So this party, so that leads me to what took place on the 26th. I was leaving Dollar General. I mean, not Dollar General. I was leaving Dollar Tree on Waterloo Road. And this is actually secretly, covertly connected to 310. Like when these entities show up somewhere, there's always a lot of things attached to it, and it always supports a lot of different suggestions. That's just how it works. So one encounter can it can be bad. So anyhow, when I was leaving out, he did what he did last year. And he saw me, he said, he just kind of stared me down. And I recognized it was him. So I knew he was going to say something. But he didn't recognize, or the demon occupying the identity then acted like it didn't recognize me, and that it was just a coincidence that we ran into one another. So he was like, hey. And he was like, you sure are beautiful, or you something like that. He complimented me. And I told him thanks. And he said, is there any way that I can call you? And I said, you don't think I'm too young for you? Or I said, you don't think you're too old for me? And he said, no, I mean, and he then eventually something took place. I asked him like about text messages, and he said, well, maybe I am too old. But he said, is there any way that you call me or I could call you? And I said, you're Sonia's brother-in-law, aren't you? And he said, yeah. Oh, he didn't. Hold up. He did not say yeah at first. He was like, he kind of malfunctioned, like it was stuck for a second. And I was like, yeah, like Sonya that stays on Upland Avenue, and she was with your brother Dwayne. And he was like, oh, yeah. And he went on about, he changed the subject. And then he came back to it. He said, you know what? It's the craziest thing. He said, he took all that furniture. And he said he rented a U-Haul. He took the furniture. And then he rented this other thing and took it back. He said he rented this other thing and he took it back. And I noted, like seeing him, act a fool with the U-Haul. And I was like, he was like, yeah, he kind of didn't want to say anything about that. He said, they need to cut it out. He was just kind of just trying to detour me from saying anything unfavorable, anything that I witnessed. So he's like, yeah, they need to stop. He said, it's crazy. I can't believe. I said, before he hurt her. And, he wouldn't comment on that either. Domestic violence is a part of their relationship. That's a part of their relationship. So anyhow, he's like, is there any way I can call you? And he was like, and so I, always take my face mask off as soon as I leave. And so he's able to see my face and everything, and it came back to him. He was like, oh, yeah, Victoria. He said, what's your name again? And I told him, and he said, yeah. And I told him, I said, I live next door, and, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, yeah. So then he was like, he went back to the calling thing. And I'm like, my phone's on. Okay. But me saying that it's off is just a polite way of saying, no, I'm not going to call you. But he's like, so I told him, I said, no, my phone's off. He said, oh, your phone? He said, how much is it? I said, it's just $45, but and I'm about to go into a hospital. He's like, well, that ain't nothing. He was like, here, get your phone turned on. And he goes in his pocket and he pulls out a $50 bill and he hands it to me. And I'm like, well, thank you. And when I took it, I'm like, this will be a good opportunity to show how nothing's genuine and how everything can be used to sabotage me. I still have the $50 bill. Hold on. And there it is. And when I left from seeing him, I went right next door and I got my money orders. I don't talk to anyone on the phone. Like, I'm completely isolated. So, and no one has my number. So it doesn't ring. So, anyhow, I'm like, oh, well, thank you. And this, thinking to myself, this will be a good opportunity to show how nothing's genuine. So, him being positioned out there was supposed to sabotage me. It was supposed to spark up, depending on which demon is using the identity, it was supposed to spark up an unfavorable conversation and imply, that I wasn't a woman of my word. So he assured me, as the conversation come to a close, he was like, I'm no stalker or nothing. He was like, but you could get your phone turned on. He was like, I'm just here to help. That's what he told me. He said, I'm just here to help. So hold up. Here is where I wrote about it. So this day, storage unit. I went to a lot of places today, but that's where I went. And I got safety pins and I got $50. Over here, I also noted it. Okay, so that day they were threatening me to perform surgery on one of my relatives. They mentioned me drinking, said that 311, 302, 323 put me in a vibrational frequency that, they were pretty much saying that I was them and they were me. And I rejected that. So I left at the Dollar Tree. I found out his name there, Saya, his brother-in-law, was about to act like he didn't know her. He wanted to give me his number. I lied and said my phone was off. He volunteered to get it turned on. I did not ask. He asked how much it was. I said 45. He gave me 50 and assured he was no stalker. He briefly discussed the U-Haul situation, but avoided the confrontation, only spoke of moving the furniture. Offered me a ride. I declined. They called me Kente, the landlord, all day also, and mentioned Suma. There was something else that I had to write something else. Hold on. That's what took place today. Okay, so I cannot find, that was just last week. I can't find anything else on that topic. Like, so I might have made a short video about it, but I have 500 plus short videos, so I'm not going to even attempt to find it. But this is what I was said in that video. They had been antagonizing me about it a lot, like remotely. The agents that are surveilling me were antagonizing me about the $50. They and still having it and having money of my own also. You know, I have a storage unit that I pay for every month. It's set up to be automatically withdrawn, and that's something that I've always done. That aligns with my past behavior. I've always kept storage units, even when I have an apartment or. So anyhow, they were going on and on about this $50 bill, and I noted it then that I was going to hang on to it, and see what manifested from it, and that if I had to give it back, it's there for me to give back. I don't need to use it. I don't need to anything. It's just there. But it presents a rare opportunity. Literally everything that the government does to me is done covertly, and they break the law in a way that is not recognized. So recently they started, I have some identities to attach to some of the crimes that they're doing. What else? So they said that when 323 found out, they weren't talking about his brother. They were talking about Sonya, the female. They said when she found out that she was gonna go ape shit and all kind of stuff, and they said she was gonna try to make a scene, and she was gonna wait till this other shit happened before she did it. And the entire time I did not know what the other shit was, and it wasn't until today that I realized that she was preparing for a party, and they orchestrated a dream. Hold up. Okay, so maybe it's that I'm looking in the dark, or but I know for sure that I wrote that, like, in here. They orchestrated a dream with her daughter and I fighting before I ran into him. So it should be like the day before. Okay, I can't find it. So to make a long story short, like, that's what happened. The threat is to orchestrate some sort of crime tomorrow on the 5th of September when this party takes place. And I beat her ass good. So, and I'm not having none of that other shit acting like you doing something that you ain't doing either. So, today, 316, the ones that they were calling me and the landlord moved. It's all kind of shit going on. If I talked, this would be an hour. This would be 22 minutes plus an hour. So that's what's happening. When I pass by, the vehicle, whether or not his brother said anything or told them, that that's what took place, I don't know. Whether or not he told her, I don't know. What I do know is I still have that. It means nothing to me. But it will, like I said, if something ingenuine manifests from it, I can prove how the intent was malicious.